Hey folks, it's RBB. Welcome to number 3 in Maya Basics. And today we're going to look at, once you've made some primitive objects after they're born, what can we do to manipulate them to make them more like the object we're trying to make? Okay, so we started out the other day with making some primitives. Here they are under poly modeling. Here's our primitives. We dropped them down. We saw how we could use the move, which is W, the scale, which is R, and the E key, which is rotate, to move these basic primitives and manipulate them, sort of, kind of. Okay. So we just started Maya. So first thing we want to do, of course, is to set our project. Set our project, YouTube practice, set. So everything's going in the right folders. If we wanted to open a scene, we could look to see what scenes we have. And we have one the other day called yada yada. If we open it, okay, it will go back to that scene, okay, which happens to be this one. But I'm done with this and I need to make a new scene. So I simply say File, New Scene, okay? And it's creating a new scene in that scenes folder. Awesome. All right, let's make a cube. Talking about primitives again. This cube is a 6-sided primitive. Remember, if we hit F, we'll focus in on it. And in Maya and in all 3D programs, you have 3 main parts of each of your models. Remember that Maya just sees math, okay? Maya just sees geometry in space. It just sees 3D math. It doesn't know this is a cube or this is a dinosaur, or this is whatever. And when things get really complicated, it may be hard to tell, like, what is this shape, okay? So this is what Maya sees as math. It shades it for us so we can see it with our little human brains, okay? The components of what makes up this cube that are important to know is the face, the faces of which in a cube there are 6 edges. Okay, these are the edges. Okay, and then the vertices are the little points where the edges meet. Okay, if we go to over here to the right hand side of our screen, you'll see the channel box, the attribute editor, and the modeling toolkit. If you click on the modeling toolkit across the top here, you'll see multi-component. This first button right here, green, means it's in object mode. And if I click object mode, my object is selected in green. And when I go to move it, scale it, or rotate it, the entire object will move. You may know this in other programs as the black arrow or the selection tool. It's going to grab the whole object. Doesn't matter if it's simple or complex, as long as it's made of one piece of geometry, it'll grab the whole thing. And we can tell because it's green. Okay, that's in object mode. These right here are our components. Here's faces. Okay, it looks like one of the faces, the sides is lit up. If we click on faces, a couple things happen. One is we've turned blue instead of green, which tells us we're in component mode. And because I'm in faces, if I hover over, I'm not clicking anything, if I hover over a face, it highlights it. Well, what do you want to select? Do you want this face? Do you want this face? Do you want all of these? Okay, to select an individual component, I left click, like you would select most things. Now, this face is what's selected, not the whole cube, just this face. So this face can move, okay, with W, can rotate with E, and can scale with R. Okay, so I can manipulate the individual components. So maybe the shape I need to start with actually looks like this. This is my most basic primitive. Well, they don't have a whatever this is shape, right? So the closest thing is a cube, and we would just manipulate it to this point, right? So I could select another face and do the same thing. Okay, you can select multiple faces by holding Shift and clicking more than one face. Okay, like most programs, you hold Shift, that adds to the selection. If you hold Control, you see the minus, that will take away from the selection. Now, you may say, why don't you just marquee select over them and grab all those 3? Yeah, well, that looks great, except that Maya grabbed all of them because remember, Maya sees this. So if I were to marquee select those what I'm calling 3, it actually selected all of it. Okay, so if I want to select just these ones going around the outside, then I'm going to rotate around and hold Shift. So I did not grab the top or the bottom. Okay. And I'm rotating around and navigating around my screen by holding Alt and left click, which we did, I think, in video one. So now all of these components can move, scale, and rotate. Okay. So that is the faces. The next component we want to talk about is the edges. And these are the edges, right? The creases. Now you don't want to call them corners or sides, because if I said move the side, am I talking about this left side? And I'm making little quote marks, right? Or am I talking about this side right here? Like, what's a side? So there's no sides, there's faces. These are the edges, right? They outline the face. Okay, and each one should have four, because remember, Maya wants four-sided polygons. We want four-sided faces, no more, no less. And if we grab these edges, we can again scale this component. Okay. Now you can't really scale, just makes sense because it's coming together like a corner, right? And you can't necessarily scale that in all different ways. We can rotate it. We can certainly move it. Okay. Now notice that this, like, oh, what happened right there? Okay. If you're moving things around, Maya will let us break physics, right? Like this cube can't really exist in the real world because some of the faces are kind of twisted, but Maya will let us make them. If I were to grab this edge right here and move it over here, okay, Maya's not going to blow up yet, but you'll notice that some of the faces turned black and it's like clearly broken. Okay, Maya will let us do it, okay, but it's broken. It is no longer like logical geometry. So try not to, if I needed to do something like this, I probably needed to grab a different component and move that one around. Inside these shapes, they're this grayish color on the outside, and they are, I'm going to delete this face. They're black on the inside, not because it's dark in there, although Maya does shade it for us so we can see 3D, but it also tells us that that's the inside. This is the outside, that's the inside. So if I were to grab one of these edges like this and move the edge over, okay, I'm now seeing like inside, and it's totally foobar. It's totally broken. Okay, so let's not do that. I'm going to grab my object mode. It's green. Left click to select that object and just delete it. Right? So let's make a new cube and bring this guy back. All right. So remember, we have faces. Okay, we have edges, and we have vertices, which are the little corners. Okay, now these, of course, can't rotate or scale because they're the infinite point where the edges come together, but we can move them. Now you may see when I'm working, I tend to not choose these up here because they didn't exist when I learned Maya. So the way I often do it is when you have an object, if you right click and hold it, this fly out menu pops up. And you'll see some like old folks like me do this. If I right click and hold it, I have my components right here. My edge, my object mode, my edges, my faces, my vertices, faces, my UVs. Okay. So if I say grab the faces and you're like, whoa, what did you just do? You didn't even go over here. It's just that's how I learned to do it. Okay. So you may see me move over here. There's a bunch of ways to do it, as with everything, however you want to. If you want to do it through the modeling toolkit, do it. If you want to do it by holding the right mouse button, do it. If you know some other ways to do it, swim in it till you get all pruny. Okay. So we can manipulate our individual components with move, scale, and rotate of the individual components, not just the whole cube, the whole sphere, the whole whatever. Okay, so if we switch this to object mode and move this guy over, let's look at another one. If we have a sphere, okay, now remember that we have four-sided faces, but there's a crap ton of faces now, right? There's 400 faces instead of 6. It's no different. I still can grab any one or more. I'm going to shift click, shift click, shift click, shift click, shift click. I can just grab whatever faces I want to, depending on what I'm building. Okay. And I can move these guys. I can scale these guys, and I can rotate these guys. I don't know why I would want to do that, but I can. Okay. So you can still do the same thing. I can do the same thing with the edges, all right, or the vertices. Now you may want to select an entire ring. These are called edge loops, and all edge loops should go all the way around your object like a rubber band. You can't have a rubber band go like 2/3 of the way around an object. It wouldn't hold anything together, right? It would be broken. It would just be silly. And normally we like silly, but these are, imagine rubber bands, like when people put all those rubber bands around a watermelon until it explodes. Okay, these are like belts that go all the way around it. So if I wanted this belt that went all the way around it, I could select, 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 rotate it around, select, select. But that, you know what? You have only so many clicks and then you die. I don't want to do that. Mine is pretty smart. If I start selecting what it can tell is going to be a loop, okay, once I select one, if it's logical right here that this is the only way I could possibly be going, if I double click on that, it'll grab the whole loop. So that's very handy. And now this whole loop can move. Now it doesn't move beyond its neighbor edges. See that? So I can make sort of like a ridge. If I want to move the whole shape, I need to be in object mode. Right now, it's not going to affect beyond the next edge. So there's my edges, but I could make it bigger. Okay, so maybe I'm making an acorn or something. I don't know. This might be the most logical shape to start with. And then I would manipulate it further. Now, if I was actually making an acorn, I'd make it into two pieces because there's two pieces of an acorn, right? There's the nut piece and then there's the hat piece. Okay. So that's convenient for, oop, that's broken. That's convenient for being able to grab an entire loop. Now we can do the same thing with faces. If I wanted to grab a face, now Maya doesn't know, do I want the whole thing? Do I want this set or do I want this set? So I may have to shift select more than one, then double click the next one. Whoops. Thanks for making a liar out of me, Maya. Oh, you bugger. There we go. Didn't believe me for a while. Once it was sure, okay, I see where you're going. I selected another one and double clicked and it eventually was like, oh, you mean this one. Okay, so probably I'm gonna shift, double click. It knew I wanted this loop and I could move it, scale it, rotate it. Okay, so my most logical basic shape may be a cylinder or may not a sphere, but I might want to then manipulate said sphere. Okay, so move, scale, rotate these individual components. I'm going to move this back into object mode and scoop this guy over. Okay, and let's throw down a cylinder. Now, if you remember from the last video, I complained that, hey, Maya only wants four-sided faces. So how come when I said make a cylinder, it gave me this cylinder with this cap that has these three-sided faces? Now, theoretically, these are like infinitely small edges here, whatever. It's definitely a triangle, right? So I'm going to show you the next thing we can do. We've still got our components. We've still got object mode, and we still have faces, right? Edges, and vertices, and that's great. But we might want to try and fix something like this. Now, I'm not going to get into fixing poles because that's a little bit more complicated, and we'll get into that several videos from now. But what you may want to do is, I need more divisions. Like this guy had a bunch of divisions and I could give him a little belly band. This guy, he doesn't have any edges here in the middle. What do I do? Okay, when an object is born, if you go to the attribute editor, and the attributes are like, it's, the attribute, like, what are your attributes? I'm, this is my name, this is how tall I am, this is whatever, it's the information about you. So this cylinder, it's poly cylinder 1, P cylinder 1. So I just clicked on attribute editor, okay, and there are hotkeys and stuff for that as well. The third tab over, when this is born, this tab is available. As soon as I start doing things to it, this tab goes away or grays out. Okay, so this polycylinder 1 right here, when I click on this third tab over in the attribute editor, I see polycylinder history. Here's how it's born. It was born 1 unit in radius. Okay, radian, remember from the center out is 1. It is 2 units high, 1 unit in positive, 1 unit in negative. All right, and it's subdivided around the y-axis 20 times. So you could count them 1, 2, 3, 4, blah, 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 20. Okay, subdivided height. just one. Okay, well, let's divide it more. Let's give it more edges. If I take this subdivide height and move this slider over, it will subdivide that height. Okay. Now you may say, well, why don't you just go like that and it'll be all kinds of awesome and do this. So it's all smooth and everything's great. The problem is that Maya is doing, and we'll learn this pretty soon, Maya is doing a ton of math on every single one of these faces, edges, and vertices. Where's the camera? Where are the lights? What is the surface? Is anything, am I looking through glass? All kinds of math is going on for every single face on our geometry. So which is going to take longer, this one or this one? Obviously this one. So we want to model as efficiently as possible and add the divisions we need, but not more than you need. So it's a toss up, and I'm sort of doing the little the scale motion here. It's a toss up. I can give it more divisions and it looks better, but it's going to take a lot longer to render, and I need a more powerful machine and I need more time and all that kind of stuff. Or I can make it simpler. It's going to be very cheap, which means it's very fast, which is great. That's what we want, but doesn't look as good. So you have to kind of balance the how good it looks with how long it's going to take, and that tells you how expensive a model is. Okay, now the last one we have here is subdivide the cap. And that's going to do exactly that. This is one subdivision. If I subdivide the cap like this, I have more mobility or more, I don't know what the word is, flexibility, I guess, to do different things. I could make this more like a pill shape, okay, by pulling each one of these faces out and raising them up. Or look, there's a little round cap button. Boop. Okay, it rounds the cap for us. So I'm going to say Control Z, which is undo in almost everything. Let's say I divide the cap a whole bunch of times and then round the cap. Notice how that is so much rounder and smoother, but exponentially how many more faces I have than if I had only divided it, 2 or 3 times. Okay, now it's a little chunkier, but that has way less faces, therefore is a less expensive model. All right, so all of our models, now it's green, it's in object mode. I'm gonna move it out of the way. All of our primitives start out that way. If you select your cube when it's born in the attribute editor, if you go to the third one over, you can subdivide this. You can subdivide in X, Y, Z, okay, width, height, and depth, if you need to manipulate this. Now, if this is just a cube or a dice or something like that, a die, that's silly. I don't need all those faces. But if I need to manipulate this into a Queen Anne chair, I'm going to need a lot of different pieces to be able to manipulate and move. So I'm going to move this back down to 1 and 1 and 1. Why this is important here is because when we have something like the cone, okay, you'll remember from the last video, the cone's broken, right? The cone has this 20-sided face. Now, why didn't Maya just go ahead and divide it like it did with the cone, the cylinder? I don't know. They didn't ask me. So I'm going to go over to my third, as soon as I make this, as soon as it's born, I'm going to come over to this third tab and I'm going to subdivide the cap, which Maya should have already done, right? At least once. So 3 is better than 20, right? 3-sided faces is better than 20. And I can divide this one more and round the cap, okay, or not. Okay, now this one is less broken. These are all 4-sided faces except for this group right in here, which later on when you're more advanced, you can learn how to fix poles. All right, now this is we talked about the other day, it is divided 20 times when it's born. I haven't done anything to it, right? It's still sitting here at the origin. I can give this more divisions and make it smoother, or I can give it less. Let's say, what's the lowest I can go? 3. So if I make a cone and say it only has 3 edges, that's my shape, right? Well, why don't they have a pyramid? Well, they do. It's over here. But a 4-sided pyramid, a 3-sided pyramid. So I can have a 4-sided pyramid, 5, and pretty much my period starts to turn into my cone starts to turn into my pyramid. There we go. That's the word. My pyramid turns into a cone when it starts getting a whole bunch of sides. Okay. Let's look at a couple of other primitives. Go back to those. If I go back to my sphere, And when it's born, I'm going to come over here to the third tab. If I subdivide the axis more, it's smoother, right? Like a disco ball with a ton of mirrors. But I can also go less. Okay. So if I want to do less, I'm making a whole different type of object. And maybe this is what I need. All right. Maybe I want to make like a bolt or a screw or something. Okay. Well, that's pretty weird looking. Okay. But you can see I can change this to a much lower or more subdivisions. If I need this to be really smooth, I'm going to up the subdivisions. Okay, remember our friend the torus, the donut looking thing? This is great because look at this third tab here. Now I still want it divided, probably, well, I can change the divisions. Now I have subdividing the axis this way and subdividing the axis this way, right? Makes it smoother or not. Okay. If I lower this one, look at this. Boop, 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 boop. Oh, now I could make like a screw or a bolt, right? Like, oh yeah, well, that doesn't need to be so donutty looking. Let's do this. Boop, 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 boop. Okay, so if I needed some sort of geometry like that, let's make the inside flat. Go. All right, so I can choose whatever my divisions are for whatever I need. So now rather than trying to manipulate and do all kinds of crazy stuff, as soon as it's born, I'm just going to change its information right here in the attribute editor. You can also, of course, change its basic scale, its radius. Okay, how thick is this? And I've never ever used this twist. I guess if you wanted like the inside of the guy to be straight or if you wanted it to be pointy, but I've never used it. Doesn't mean you can't, just never have. All right, I'm gonna delete that guy. If we look at the sphere again, and if we change, the radius, let's actually look at the torus. The torus probably makes more sense. Let's say I want this to be a thin thing, like a ring or a belt or something like that. If I subdivide the axis this way, remember it's gonna be more like a bolt, right? But if I lessen the radius, it's still just as thick. It's say 1 inch thick, but it's really big, like the CERN collider, or it's really little. The radius is the cross section. Okay, so if I make it really low, like let's say I do 0.2, okay, now that's a pretty thin radius. And remember, if we scroll out, that's a pretty small guy. If we make this really big, right, we can always lower the radius, say 0.02, and let's divide the axis, make it a little smoother, right? Now you got the CERN had the collider, right? So all of these basic shapes can be manipulated as soon as they're born to be closer to the basic shape that you need for making your project. So if you're thinking, yeah, thanks, RBB, I don't need any of these. I'm trying to make CERN Hadron Collider. That thanks a lot. I don't need a donut. Okay, well, you can change all its parameters right here. Okay, so quick just overview. Of course, always remember to set your project. Um, the edges, faces, and vertices, okay, they live in the modeling toolkit, or you can right click and find them here. Okay, object mode is green. When a whole object is selected and you hit delete or backspace, it deletes. I'm going to hit F and zoom in on this guy. Focus. If I were to grab a single face or more than one face, shift select, okay, shift select. If I now delete, it will delete just those faces. Okay, that's perfectly fine too. I may want to delete. I'm going to grab this whole top section. See how I grabbed them all at once because Maya sees right through it all and delete it. Maybe I need the top cut off. Maybe I need half a circle. Okay, so if I want to grab half a circle, then I can do that as well. All right, I hope that was helpful, and I will see you next time. Thanks. Bye bye.